G.G. Jackson decommits from North Carolina, commits to South Carolina, reclassifies into the class of 2022. I kind of aired my thoughts on this when it happened. We posted that YouTube video. I'll throw the link in the description below. T.O., I think we kind of disagree on this. I think that this is a bad decision for all involved outside of the financial benefits that G.G. Jackson is going to get out of this between what he can make from NIL this year as opposed to next year and being able to start his NBA clock and get his second and third NBA contracts a year earlier, which makes him more valuable.
Have you ever turned down $3 million?
No, I never would. And that's why I'm saying, like, that's why if this is strictly a financial thing, do it. I just think that going to a program with a guy that has G.G. Jackson's specific skill set where you're not really like the guy, you kind of need other people to play off of to kind of set you up. Going to a situation where I can't even name one person on that South Carolina roster without Googling the South Carolina roster. I just think that's a bad fit.
You're not a Michie Johnson fan? Not a huge Hayden Brown guy?
Whatever. And then I think that if you're Lamont Paris, bringing in...
What a win for Lamont. What a win for Lamont.
Is it a win, though? Huge. Is it a win? Yeah, I get the idea.
It's a massive win. If nothing else, they say they stink. And GG averages 15 and 12 and they stink. This allows guys to say yes to South Carolina now. Because South Carolina is not a talent abundant state. It's got 3, 4, maybe 5 a year that can compete at that level. This allows those guys to say yes to South Carolina, despite not being a great school basketball-wise for a long time. Matter of fact, I'm not really sure what South Carolina is good at except for baseball for the longest time running now, and that's a little bit of Clemson hate just kind of bleeding through my pores. But at the same time, like, this is a huge win because you think about Julian Phillips going to Tennessee, PJ Dozier's the last one who went to South Carolina, G.G. Jackson now, KJ Green next year. There's talent in South Carolina. There's not that much, but what it does is it allows those guys to say yes to Carolina. So for Lamont Paris, this is a huge win. A huge win. Not a little win. A huge win. Now for GG, on the other hand, you're going to
hold on. Before on that, let me play devil's advocate on that for you real quick, because I think that this sets a level of expectation for this program that there is zero chance that is going to be able to be delivered.
It's year one.
Yes, and that's the problem. You're going out.
It's a year one and a rebuild.
You're going out and getting G.G. Jackson, and it's going to set a level of expectation for what this team should be. And there's no possible way that South Carolina can live up to any kind of expectation. I don't know if they're going to finish top 12 in the SEC this year. I think it's very legitimate that they are right there with like Vanderbilt as ending up being the worst team in the SEC. And
you don't think Stackhouse has got it going?
How did it work out? How did it work out getting Anthony Edwards to Georgia for Tom Crean? How did it work out
for Tom Crean?
How did it work out getting Ben Simmons to LSU for Johnny Jones? How did it work out getting Jaylen Brown and Ivan Rabb to Cal for Konzo Martin? All I'm saying is that when you go out and you get these, how did it work out getting Jaden McDaniels to stay home for Washington for Mike Hopkins? All I'm saying is that when you get these elite recruits to stay home, it helps with the recruiting momentum. It also sets a level of expectation for the program that's surrounding an 18-year-old with a bunch of guys that aren't good enough is a situation that I don't think is – it's rare to find a situation where that works out to the benefit for everybody involved. Whereas if he had gone to North Carolina this year, maybe next year, whatever it would have ended up being, there would be more talent around him. There would be a better structure for him to be able to thrive. And, you know, at the end of the day, when you're winning games, right, I think that looks better for you overall as a player, as a prospect heading into the next level, even if you don't necessarily put up the biggest numbers. That's all I'm saying. Your point about it building momentum within the state, 100% legitimate, and I agree with. I also think that there's a very real risk and a downside to bringing him into this situation.
But this is the same exact argument that we talked about earlier in this podcast, which is the theme for this podcast. Recruiting does not necessarily translate to material wins in the sport.
No, but this could lead to getting those 3 and 4 years. Like South Carolina has those 30 to 75 ranked kids. They have those kids on occasion. Like they'll have 2 or 3 every so often. You got to get those kids. And like the fact that they're able to get Gigi helps those kids kind of teeter towards that way. That's my like.
But that's the thing.
And that's fair.
This is where it's
what's
different.
Your expectations?
This is where it's different. This isn't Lamont Paris going, I need to hit it big with this recruit because I'm trying to save my program, or we've got to start winning games. So this is how I'm going to try to parlay it and do it. You don't do it off that way. It's proven to be very unsuccessful for past coaches who have tried to do it. T.O. said it. It's year one. Sure, somebody watching Gigi is going to have this expectation level that he's the next big thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't think so. His skill set doesn't make him someone that others are going to benefit off of. He's a forward. This is not someone who's creating for others. The point being is, yes, there's narratives out there. And Rob, you're absolutely right on what people expect from a kid, a big name. Now they think South Carolina, somebody that's uninformed is going to think South Carolina will play a factor in the SEC. But it's year one. For Lamont Paris's first year on the job at South Carolina is about doing a couple of things. Number one, establish some sort of recruiting momentum at a program that needs all the recruiting momentum they can get. Number two, get publicity. South Carolina basketball is not going to get much publicity. And at the end of Frank Martin, I sensed a level of apathy. Lamont Paris just installed energy and buzz into a basketball program at a football school. This is much more of a win than it ever will be a loss.
Only thing I will say is this. You're talking about recruiting momentum. You're talking about recruiting buzz. You're talking about being the cool program to go to. Gigi Jackson was the number one prospect in the class of 2023.
And he's reclassing. So I think he's reclassing. That's the reason I didn't put him at number one. He's reclassing.
He was, before he reclassed, he was number 20. He's number one in that class. Right now, according to 24/7's composite recruiting rankings, he's the number 6 player in the class of 2022. Let's say South Carolina has a bad year. Let's say that Gigi Jackson his flaws are exposed this season because there's no point guard on that roster to be able to set him up and put him in a situation where he's going to succeed.
Ohio State transfer Michi Johnson.
Freshmen in the SEC routinely get their ass kicked because that is a great conference, right? That is a legitimately great conference. Fanta, we talked about this a little bit off air, could end up being the best conference in college basketball this season. I think there's a legitimate argument for that. Let's say he averages 11 points, 6 boards, shoots like 32% from 3 as a 6'9" combo forward, and drops to like, I don't know, late lottery, middle of the first round.
It takes $30 million.
Are you really building recruiting momentum if the argument is you can bring in this kid that could have been the number one player in the class, who you bring him in, you lose a whole bunch of games, he doesn't play that well, and he goes from being the best player in 2023 to being a guy that is picked late lottery? Is that really building recruiting momentum?
Well, what's your alternative? Your alternative
what's the alternative? Being South Carolina and not having anybody drafted for a long time?
I'm just saying, I don't think that this move.
Who's the last one? PJ Dozier?
I think you probably have to do it.
Ever the contrarian you are, Buster.
I don't think you probably have to do it, but I don't think that this is necessarily a move that is the home run that I've seen a lot of people kind of say that it could.
It's year one.
It's year one. It's not like a saving grace. You
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, they're starting well.
They're starting with the number one player in the country. If I could pick, I'm starting there.
And if you go out and you win 4 SEC games with the number one player in the country, and he goes from being a projected number one pick to being a guy that's taken outside of the lottery, that's all I'm saying. It's not without risk. It's not without risk. All right.